My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Dr. Rebecca Swift. She's an expert in commercial photography trends and the Senior Vice President of Creative at Getty Images. I was recently at a Getty Images event when a friend introduced me to Rebecca, and I was immediately enthralled with her ability to communicate kindly, candidly, and thoughtfully about AI and its impact on creatives. I was honored when she said yes to be on an episode of Behind the Act, and I do want to say that Getty Images has represented my video and photography portfolio since 2016, but this is not a sponsored episode. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Dr. Rebecca Swift.
What's my title? Well, as in my title at Getty Images or my title?
For life.
For life.
Yeah.
I'm doctor.
You say what?
I'm a doctor, Dr. Rebecca Swift.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Is that what I just say there? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, for Getty, what do you do?
I'm the SVP of Creative.
Okay.
What does that mean?
And how long have you been doing that?
Ooh, 6 months.
Really?
Ooh, not even 6 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and so tell me about your how long you've been in the creative space and what you did before.
In the industry.
Uh-huh.
Oh God, in total over 30 years. Broken up by stints at Getty Images. I've been at Getty Images this time for 12 years, and I've also done things like documentary and teaching. I've done a lot of teaching for degree and postgraduate photography as well.
Okay.
So
primarily photography stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I never would have predicted that, but yeah.
That's awesome. So what got you into photography?
Honestly, it was an absolute fluke. It was a total accident. I did my first degree in English literature, and then I did a postgraduate in advertising, and that was what I wanted to go into, like, creating ads, doing the whole thing, not being a supplier to ads, but actually. And so, but I was looking for a job in London and ended up at a photo agency. And I honestly thought I'd probably do that for a couple of years and ended up doing it my entire career. So I feel like a bit of an imposter in that it wasn't a desire my entire childhood. It wasn't something that I desperately wanted to do. It's something that I've grown to love and now cannot do anything else. So
That's how film is for me.
Is
honestly.
it really?
Yeah, the imposter syndrome initially actually shows up more for the music side for me.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because I have my identity attached to it.
Yeah.
But the film side, I guess, is a little bit easier. But I mean, I built a film company and had people that went to film school wanting to work at a film company and not being at all someone who thought I was going to get into film.
Yeah, I know. And it's awful when especially when you're talking to people who are desperate to get into the industry, who have trained their entire educational life to be in the industry, and then they say, how do you do it? And I'm like, I fell into it.
I don't know. Yeah, accidentally.
Yeah, so it does. I do feel like a bit of a fluke, but I've worked my arse off, since then. So
right.
It's not, it's not luck that has kind of got me to where I am today.
Yeah.
But that initial job, yeah, certainly.
What excites you the most? Like when you have the most exciting days?
I think my most exciting days are kind of days like today, and where you're creating something with a group of people, and you do a lot of prep beforehand. You do all the kind of production stuff, and then the day comes, and usually you're tired before you've even started. Yeah, and then and then the day kind of goes on, and you get more and more tired. But the feeling of exhilaration at the end of it is, I think that's what brings people back to doing this work over and over again.
Yeah.
And there is something, and we've heard it a lot during this event, this weekend. There's a lot to be said for doing things in the way that we have been doing it, in groups, with kind of building the community, because you do spend a lot of time on your own, don't you? You spend a lot of time kind of going to a job. You might meet other people on the job, but actually being with a group of people that you have a familiarity with, and who then, you know, more people kind of come into your gang.
Right.
It's just wonderful, and I think that's, you know, the best thing about this job is working with creators, working with people who, you know, like yourself, who've got such an interesting background and, you know, really passionate about what you do and things that you kind of, you know, you get up out of bed every day to do. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so the exhilarating side of it for you, it sounds, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like it is, I mean, fully in the support of other creatives, right?
Yeah, because I've never been a photographer myself. I've never been a filmmaker myself, but I've done enough of it to be able to offer something, you know, to offer advice, to offer, you know, a level of expertise in terms of what I know will work or won't work, or even to offer ideas. And so, yeah, I think, and also I think it's an age thing, to be honest. I think you get to a certain age, and you have this steep learning curve when you first start, and you feel like everybody knows everything and you don't. And then actually something happens. Like for me, something happened in my 40s when I suddenly realised I was in the older generation in the industry, and I was kind of like the old, you know, the wise old woman, and not one of the cool kids anymore. And so then
I just transitioned into that.
there you go. And it's only with hindsight that you kind of look back and you go, oh gosh, yeah, I'm not who I thought I was. You know, I still thought I was kind of fighting the good fight and bringing down the, you know, those in charge and all that. Actually, it turns out I am in charge, and that, you know, that people are trying to now overthrow me, but I guess that's just a kind of natural progression, isn't it? It's the natural nature of things. Right. But I think you can either kind of rest back on your laurels and go, well, you know, I'm an expert, I've done this for 30 years, therefore you need to listen to me, or you can give back and actually demonstrate that you know what you're doing, by helping other people do well, you know. So yeah.
Wait, what did you get your doctorate in?
Photography.
Okay.
Yeah, commercial photography. I did my thesis on visual trends in the commercial industry, and how creativity is defined by commercial photographers, and how we kind of look in on ourselves on kind of what we think is creative versus maybe what the outside world thinks of creative. And I kind of combine that with, you know, looking at the evolution of advertising over a 30-year period, and you know, and looked at certain points in time at, you know, how the industry kind of saw itself, and where we saw like amazing new things happening. So yeah, it took me 8 years, mainly because I really, really enjoyed it. Actually, I'm telling a lie. It's almost like childbirth. You look back and you think that was okay, but actually in the moment it was horrendous. I hated it. I swore. I you know, every time my supervisor sent me back a piece of work, I would actually go into a cold sweat, because I just knew I had a lot of revisions to do and all the rest of it. And she was just amazing. She was an amazing mentor for me. But then when it's done, it's like, you know, no one can take it away from you. It's kind of, you know.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so you talk about trends, and right now there's a new trend out there with AI and generative AI.
Funny you should mention that.
I know. I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but it seems like you are an absolutely perfect candidate to be working in a time when the whole industry is going to be changing, and the use case for not only creatives but for consumers. And something I took away from this, and I mean, I'm going to clearly state it at the beginning, but this is not a sponsored video, but I love that Getty has such a focus on the contributors and keeping things pure on that end, especially for even the training of the AI models, right? So I guess, can you tell me a little bit about that? What the inspiration is?
Getty Images was founded on the notion of creativity and quality, and you know, one of the first things that the company did, the founders did, was buy the kind of the highest quality stock agency at that time, which was called Tony Stone Images. And after that, they started buying up the archives and really, you know, basically maintaining the history of photography for future generations. So we have this incredible archive right back to the start of photography in the 1800s. And so that, I think that ethos has just stayed within the culture through that we're 30 years old next year. And And I think when it came to AI, we were obviously incredibly aware that the world was changing, that our customers, the people, the creatives that we work with were very excited about AI. And there has been this incredible rush to kind of adopt it in many different ways. But we took our time. We've got our own tool that we've created with NVIDIA, and we just went to the best. We went with NVIDIA. We worked with them for well over 4 years on our model. We were kind of late, I suppose, in launching it. It was towards the end of last year, which, there was so much being launched at the beginning of last year.
The whole thing is like a year and a half old at this point,
right? I know.
Okay,
it's crazy, isn't it? It was like, we were late, Q4 or whatever.
Yeah, it feels like it's 10 years old, but it's like not.
I know. Actually, there's some really good, people have created some really good graphics of how quickly this technology is being adopted versus, mobile technology and computer technology, etc. But anyway, so the key thing, I think, in all of the conversations we've had around our AI tool was that we're creator-centric. That's the key thing. We want to maintain our community. We want the community to be sustainable. The only way we can do that is to ensure that we're giving our community the opportunity to not only participate in the success of the model, i.e. to be paid a royalty on any kind of deals that we make or subscriptions that the customers take out, but also ensuring that we don't create a model that's mixed in with a lot of scraped content, Creative Commons content, stuff that's scraped from the site, but we keep it kind of it's an AI tool of our community, which sounds really I think it kind of sounds really bizarre, but it's we know what's in there. And so we that was really important to us, and it's interesting how we have got a lot of new customers that have come to Getty Images to use the tool because they know it's clean.
Yeah.
And we have a very strong kind of ethical stance in terms of how we're developing it. And so and then they come and they also license content. So which to us is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Sai answered the question about why we don't have AI using vision models to create the text and tags, it was the first time it made sense to me. I was like, why can't we just do this? And I'm like, because then you have AI training AI.
Yeah.
And instead of humans doing it, and that makes so much sense of that, keeping the model clean. Yeah. Like you said. And I think as creators, I do music and I do film and photography, and I'm a blogger and I actually write my own words, and it's easy for me I've kind of joked that AI is literally just trying to come after me personally.
On all fronts, by the looks of things, exactly. From each corner.
Exactly, but it's given me permission to realize that my value as a creator comes from my own personal taste and approach to something, not because of any level of objective better or worse or anything. And so it still matters for me to show up and do stuff. But I guess what have you felt has been helpful to communicate to people that are feeling overwhelmed by the concept of AI? I know multiple musicians and photographers especially, and videographers now that are either burying their head in the dirt and pretending like this doesn't exist, or just feeling dealing with mental health crises because of the depression that's caused by I guess what are your views on it? You literally have a doctorate in trends.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should say that because I'm going to sound like a right old woman now, but I think for especially in my industry, and you could then transpose that across other industries. But we've had two crises in our history, and in both instances, it was the death of photography was a kind of a major kind of message. The first time was when we shifted from analog to digital. It was like, well, digital's really easy. Why would anyone hire a photographer? And as we know, it actually just completely transformed the industry. And the second time was when camera phones came into existence, so the 2010, 2011, and when user-generated content was the buzzword. And I wish I could go back to that time, and I wish I'd counted proportionately the number of briefs that we received that said content must look like it's UGC, which has now gone out of fashion. But that was really, and again, it was like, why do we need stock photography? Why do we need professional photographers when we can just get community, consumers, people on the street to shoot the content? Turns out it's actually really hard to make photographs. And when you see great images, they are serendipitous. They, an amateur photographer or a photographer who's shooting with their iPhone will get the odd great image.
Right.
A professional photographer will do that over and over and over again, continuously, to deadline, etc. So, that kind of trend, which was, I'd say, probably end of 2008 until 2013, 14 was the peak of that, and then we saw obviously the rise of microstock, which kind of came in through the back door on that kind of, lower priced cameras and easier barrier to entry, etc. And what happened was that the market expands to fit everybody. What also has been happening in all of that time and continues to happen today is that we need more visual images. We need more visual images to serve on our social media feeds, on blogs and websites, and if you think about how companies communicate with us, it's via visual media, whether that's email or social media, and advertising. So actually, what's happening is kind of you have got this growth in content being created, but you've also got this growth in the requirement of content, and it's finding that sweet spot where the two match.
Right.
If you are spending all of your time shooting stuff that was kind of popular in my own industry, in stock in the 2010s, which is the kind of content now that you look at and you think, oh gosh, that's really stocky.
Yeah, like great big vignettes and HDR, right? I mean.
Oh my God, don't even get me started about HDR. Honestly, I just can't even. I just can't. Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you probably aren't going to keep up, and potentially you will have a detrimental effect on you. Yeah, but go with it. There are so many opportunities. There is so much stuff and people and things that have not yet been visualized, and so focus on those. Don't keep trying to do the same thing over and over again, because it's all been done before. Yeah.
The way I look at content is there's a difference between beautiful and valuable.
Yeah.
And so where the value comes from depends on literally the purchaser's view of it. And so as we're moving into a world, and fast forward X number of years, whether it's 100 or 1 at this point, who knows, where AI content and every way creative will be indistinguishable at some point from human created content. But in the same way that we value handmade content and human-made content for certain reasons, and the ethics, by the way, behind editorial review boards and news stories and political stuff. I mean, there's a complex cascade of where AI content can complicate the human experience, but also add value to the human creatives that are engaging in any of these spaces. Forever. It's just like these chairs we're sitting in are beautiful because they were built as a manufacturing process. This to me is AI furniture, right? But a hand-built version of it is going to be more valuable.
Exactly.
Exactly. And have its flaws, and that's what makes it beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and also this is what we were talking about yesterday. A hand-built chair with the story of the person who made it, their history, that how they created it, some kind of behind the scenes of the process. That is more valuable than just the object itself.
Right.
And you just can't do that with AI. Oh, I sat in front of my computer and wrote prompts for 20 hours.
Yeah. Well, that's been an interesting thought I've had, and as a musician, just releasing a song now will have no value.
But yes,
I mean,
yeah.
it hopefully will, because people will know that I did it and know who my face is or something, that people did care. I need like 3 fans, that's all. So, okay, so but the goal is really for me to have a character that people know that they're attaching to, that's a real human, and give that opportunity to other people, so that they know that there's humanity attached to that. Because then I can care about that. And also there's a trust thing that when, it's like when you, I mean, the old version of it is when you call somebody's voicemail and they go, hello, and then you start talking, they're like, oh, I'm just kidding, this is my voicemail, right? You feel duped.
Yes.
And I think that the same thing's happening within AI.
And then if you turn out to then be an AI musician, that is when social media will go apeshit.
Yep.
Because we don't, as human beings, we don't want to be duped. If you release music and say, I am an AI musician, fair enough, let people decide. But if you pretend to be a real person and then you're not, and we've seen that in influencers on Instagram, we've seen that in terms of, on very expensive advertising campaigns, where the knock-on effect of then discovering that it's AI has just caused so much negativity for that brand that they then have to bring that back. And you mentioned editorial photography, and I think it's quite interesting how some of the ethics of editorial are now being applied to creative photography. We never had deep conversations with the media or with corporate brands about whether an image was retouched in any way. It's been universally acknowledged that Photoshop is something we all use. But now it's really important that you are upfront about the fact that you use Photoshop. Are you retouching a person? Are you taking things out? Are you adding things in? It's almost like we're going backwards, which I find fascinating.
I love that, though.
Yeah.
It's like the overly stabilized video shot was great for a few years to me, and then I stopped carrying my gimbal because I was like, I love the handheld look. I'm not trying to villainize.
But you see that in film. You see that in film and TV shows now as well.
All the time. Yeah, that is where it goes. Like rarely are they like perfectly smooth.
Yeah. But I think the kind of the imperfect has again, I think that kind of what you're saying, it has more value. At Getty Images, we do a lot of image testing. So we will kind of run surveys and things and test different styles of content with the general public, across the world. So we will get, the US version versus Japanese versus UK versus Germany, etc. And anything that is too perfect is identified as AI, even if it's not AI.
Right.
So it's that aesthetic. And this is the thing that I really would love to spend some time analysing is what is the aesthetic of AI? Well, to me, it kind of looks like deviant art of the last 20 years. It kind of looks like fantasy world, computer games, it has that very highly polished look, which is fine. A lot of people like that, obviously. But it's really interesting how then you've got this counter trend, which is going completely the other way. And, watching the younger generation, I think, is always really important in these instances, who are now incredibly digitally aware and I think they're called digital natives, aren't they? The young people today, who are now adopting, analog photography, buying up way more film than than has been sold in the last 20 years, printing images for, and actually, using the analog images, trading in them as well, actually, buying more vinyl, going back to books instead of Kindles. And even tape, like cassette tapes are now starting to grow in popularity. So it's kind of interesting how we're starting to reject the technological solution. There are, we love technology when it serves our purpose. Like, we love the fact that you could be standing on the street corner and you could hail a cab and, and get in and that we love AI when it works like that. But AI, when it comes to creativity, humans, they like to keep it in the human world.
I've said it multiple times on the podcast, but I use AI for my stuff, but none of it is to generate the content. It's to make it so that it's more reasonable for me to be able to share the content for people.
Right.
So for example, I'll take the 3 cameras and run it through a process that does an hour-long interview in about 50 seconds.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But that's just the first interview. And then I'll go through and listen to it and make sure that I like, everything, and that we don't say something that makes us feel silly, and, and then share, obviously there's a human aspect to it as well. But so I see AI as a tool that's helping me share more of humanity with humanity than the other way around. I mean, what excites you most about?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think it's the tool aspect of it. It's, whether it's time saving, whether it's amplification, multiplication, or whatever. There are definitely great things about AI. Yeah, and we do a ton of briefs every year, thousands of briefs we're sending out, and we've been testing how we might use a GPT or something to help us do that, because we just don't have enough humans to write those briefs. And our creative team are visual creatives. They're not writing creatives, if you see what I mean. But necessarily we need to write those briefs. So I think there's definitely, if AI is working in the service of humans, then I think it works incredibly well. So and it's kind of finding that balance, not. And it's really interesting how many people want to be experts in AI and so have gone running off in that direction. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, we just need a bit of balance, I think.
Yeah, and it's all so new with everything just coming out every 3 seconds with something fresh and mind-blowing. And I mean, I'm going to say 8 years ago, we built an algorithm, quote unquote. It was basically a form field going into a Google Sheets document with if-then statements that flowed into using the hero's journey as a structure, but questions for manufacturers that would help build a script.
Right.
And I was like, this is going to be replaced by something at that point I didn't know, but something like ChatGPT. And I had just assumed that the synthesis of imagery would not happen nearly as quickly. I was like, that'll be the last thing that gets covered.
Yeah.
So pushing into the stock side made so much sense, and it excited me. But I guess my point of that is that I realize that I'm just wrong a lot, and the thing that I can champion is my humanity and creative experience without the view of trying to be better than anyone or try to hit even a specific marker for myself other than enjoyment and honesty. And something I found with stock for our side is that when I go film something that I really like, not thinking about what the market needs, it's a win. Most of the time, I mean, obviously not all the time.
It's a tangible thing.
Yeah.
Other people feel it. If something is formulaic and feels like it's just being factory produced in some way, it's identifiable. It's not identifiable. It's very hard to actually explain what that is. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Again, I'll go back to when we test images. People will say, I don't like it. Or they'll say, no, I didn't even notice it. Or, the language that they use is not actually the reason that they're rejecting that image. It's because there's something in that image that is slightly off kilter, doesn't feel human, it doesn't resonate with them as a human being.
Yeah.
And I think that's, that is one of the problems with AI in particular. It doesn't necessarily kind of draw you in the same way.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I think that's true now, but I mean, do you agree at some point that will, I think
potentially, but I think we're in a difficult situation now in that we have the entire kind of history of visuals that's gone into these mass models. And so what will potentially happen in the coming years is that there will be less content being created feeding those models. And so you're never going to change how those models look because you're not feeding it with the stuff that's going to actually move the needle. God, that was loud.
Yeah, it was loud.
And so, I think the whole issue of the training set will rear its ugly head over and over.
Okay.
And
I've heard that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, if you think about it, we're already reaching the limitations of what these things can do.
Right.
You look at video, for example.
Yeah.
the big tech companies are all racing to be the first to have a video solution. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And there isn't enough video in the world. There is not enough video to train those sets. And then, how do you keep
At
feeding
least
it?
ethically and legally, right? I mean.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know my feelings on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's fascinating. And that's been something too. Like I've seen multiple synthesis models for video that have blown my mind, truly, that I'm like, that's incredible. I mean, it has its nuance of awkwardness, and it's like the first AI photos came out, through different tools that we knew, didn't know at first that it was fake, and then now you just spot it like that.
Yeah, right.
And I think that we have that hope that deepfake kind of content is going to be the same way. Where at some point we're like, oh no, but I think there are risks we all have to manage. But I think moving forward, as literally an expert in trends, what advice would you give to the world of creatives, not just in just any artists or anybody, about where your hope comes from in the future?
My hope comes from I hope comes that the conversation that AI has created will, I think it will just highlight how important it is to support the creative community. There's a lot of conversations about it in the UK in particular, because our creative output is a big part of our GDP as a country. And so, if you don't support that, what kind of country are you? Look at me talking about countries. But anyway, are you a manufacturing country? Are you an import-export country? And actually being a creative country that has a big creative product is pretty cool. It means people want to go there for their holidays. It means people want to work there. And so, we have to kind of, I think, make sure that we protect the community at all costs, and appreciate that some will use the technology in a really creative, amazing way. Others will go back to kind of, techniques of the past, and the rest will kind of carry on for many, many years, doing what they do. So that's my hope anyway. I don't necessarily want it to go away, but I just want the conversation to go away. I want everyone to just calm down and to accept that it's here, and just remember what's important. I think that's the key thing. Remember what's important. And I think, I'm sure you can relate to this. Most creatives don't go into being a creative because they want to be at the cutting edge of technology. They go into the creative industry because they want to create. And so, yes, technology enables you to do some of it, but actually the creative process is the important thing.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with other people you think might gain value from it. My name is Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act.